Hello, everyone, and welcome to SFDC sessions for the week of February 8th. My name is Alisa Carroll, and I'm editor-in-chief of Henry Magazine. This week, we are so excited to be sharing our 20th episode with you, and we cannot thank you enough for your support and for being here with us over this past year. So today we wanted to share the love, and as Valentine's Day is approaching, we wanted to focus on some beloveds in our lives who don't often get the spotlight, which are children. And today we're so delighted to welcome the co-founders of studioHEIMAT, Alisa, Cheung, Lichtenstein, and Eva Bradley, who are going to share their insight about creating wonderful children's spaces. So welcome, Eva, and welcome, Alisa. It's so great to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. We're so excited to be here.
We're so thrilled to have you. And obviously you founded your firm in 2015 and have created these extraordinary spaces, everything from private residential to commercial to hospitality. But today we're going to be focusing on kids spaces. So, just kicking things off on our subject today, you obviously created for the 2019 San Francisco Decorator Showcase this spectacular children's bedroom. And obviously when you go into the showcase, you kind of can pick any room you'd like. You have a bit of carte blanche on the design. So what inspired you to design something for that age group?
I think at the time we were wanting to do something like a kind of a labor of love and do something that we hadn't been asked to do as much in the past by our clients. And with Showcase, we decided that we wanted to create a muse. The movie Crazy Rich Asians had come out like a year, maybe 2 years ago. So I kind of had this like tropical backdrop in mind. My mom's from Malaysia, so like Singapore and Malaysia are just, a stone throw away from each other. So we kind of dreamed up this narrative of these teenage twin girls that were relocating from Singapore to San Francisco. And I think the reason why we were drawn to the idea of teenage girls is there's just something like magical about the teenage years, where they're both extremely tumultuous and yet so full of possibility. And you feel really like invincible one moment, and then you feel so vulnerable in the next moment. So it's just like a weird time in your life, but it's also so exciting. And with that, I think creating the room for this, like with those twins as our muse, we wanted to create a place that was like very joyful and a personal space for them that really felt like a safe vessel for them to voice their fears, for them to share their dreams, who they had crushes on, like decide the kind of adults that they wanted to grow into. So that was kind of the thought behind who we were creating for in that room, in that space.
That's so wonderful. And again, right, so intentional. Like you thought through that so beautifully. You not only were responding aesthetically, but sociologically thinking about, okay, how can this help these two, virtual girls become their best selves, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, use that too. Like one of our favorite parts of that room was artwork by Carissa Potter Carlson. And we just had all these, like, she just does a great job of, saying voicing different feelings that as we had people walk through the room, like so many people were like, oh my gosh, I totally thought that when I was a teen. Or like, I still think that today.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say, or sometimes still today.
Yeah. Like are those now hanging in your office?
Yeah, yes, they are.
Yeah. Truly, isn't that part of like, if you can name it, then you can kind of like own it or dispel it? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and of course, during lockdown, we're all trying to obviously pay extra attention to the children and the teens in our lives because, they're having to adapt to such difficult and dramatic changes, no socializing or playing with friends, virtual schooling, and of course, being on lockdown at home 24/7. So I'm really curious as to what are parents asking you for right now in terms of both space planning and in just sparking joy for their kids?
I guess one more obvious one, given that kids have to work from home and have more Zoom classes, they clearly need a dedicated space where they can work, which was not a necessity before and definitely has become something that's essential. Along with that, I think another thing that parents ask nowadays is more zonings. Like, so you have a dedicated, study area, dedicated play area, and the dedicated area where you sleep. If space allows, obviously it'd be great to have the studying area in a different room than the playroom. But if not, then you could always make different, create these different zones, what I was mentioning just earlier.
And then may I ask you too, I think you had mentioned modularity
Mhm.
in terms of what you're speaking about now, and modular pieces as really assisting in that process.
We're working on a room right now where we're creating just that, different zones for different things, and it's all modular and on casters, or like easily, like not too heavy so you can move it around, so we can like freshen up whenever, and also I guess to expand or contract per what the activity requires. So
There's also, I guess, another project we are still working on where we created like a loft concept. So we currently are still designing this loft where on the top level it's more of like a reading area, or you can make it like into a Lego play area, and then on the bottom it's more of like a studying, or where the second child, the couple happens to have 2 kids, can have like their own little zone, and they can have like separate little spaces that still make them feel like they have their own kind of different vibe, I guess.
I love that you were so conscious of that. And again, you spoke about wanting to allow kids their agency, right? So if a child wants to, be independent, have their own little space to work on something, that allows them to do that, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And then may I ask you, with the older child set, so with teens, obviously there's a different approach, because I'm sure they have very definite ideas about what they might want for their spaces. And you recently created this beautiful teens bedroom in Palo Alto for a client. And I wondered if you could share what that process was like, and maybe offer some advice to designers who haven't yet worked with a teenager on a space.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you, first off. I think the way we kind of approached it was more so trying to put yourself into the teenager's room. In that specific example, it was a girl. And I tried to like envision, how was I at that age? Me personally, I was a little bit more shy, and I don't know if I could have told, a designer, I want, pink on the wall and blue on the bedding. Yeah. So I think we more so approached it as like a conversation. We asked her, what do you like? What do you don't like? And not necessarily just design wise, right? What do you do on a daily basis? Oh, I go play basketball, or hang out with my friends. We take photos of each other, watch TikToks.
Right.
With that, just kind of try to create a friendship, but also let her like open up and explain the things that she may not even have known that she likes, and then kind of extract the information from that and use them in specific ways. Like maybe you can use an accessory that, has something to do with pears because she loves pears, or she loves to take photos, and give her a Polaroid and say, take some photos, and we like make that into string art, or just, in like more creative way, trying to infuse who she is, so that in the end this really becomes a room that she feels like belongs to her and she feels comfortable in.
Yeah, and that again, right, can be such a reinforcement of her own identity.
Exactly.
Right.
At such a young age, that's like important, right, to kind of try to hone in on that.
Because obviously, when you look at, boys' rooms and girls' rooms, not even having anything to do with gender, there's such an intense reflection of what they're going through at that time, right?
Completely.
Right. I remember having all of those pictures of, who was it at the time? Anyway, let's skip that. On our wall, or whomever it might be, right? Like it's such a reflection as you're trying to figure out who you are. Yeah. Yeah. I love the fact too that you think so holistically about the work that you do, and I, again, harking back to the term HEIMAT. And prior to starting your practice, you worked with Ken Falk, who is, of course, so esteemed for creating experiential spaces. And it definitely seems like you have that mastery of creating immersive environments in your work. And I wondered if you could speak to that a little bit, about being attuned to all of the senses.
Definitely. Well, it was an awesome experience to have to work for Ken. And I think I started out right after school, so it was my first real life experience. And
wow.
So that being said, we had to kind of think big and think creatively. And he was always a big proponent on like saying, don't like, just dream big. You don't need to like cut down just because you think this can't happen or somebody can't build it. That's somebody else's job to figure that out. So truly, whatever you can think of, we can get this done. Yes, exactly.
Encouraged to be ambitious in terms of your design conceptions from the very beginning, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would also add that one thing that was really kind of an amazing thing to experience and like help to execute while we were at Ken's was just, he was full service. So we really have adopted that, and because we really don't know another way, and it feels weird to us to like leave parts out. So, we love to go above and beyond. And I remember there'd be projects where, they were truly like space planning before demo would happen at Ken's. And then all the way to the end of the project, we would like have popped the champagne and he would be there to greet the clients. We'd have lit the like wood burning fire and have stocked the fridge. And so it was like truly an experience for the clients at the end. And that was like for sure one of the favorite parts. And one way that we've sort of adopted that approach for StudioHEIMAT is really layering like a signature scent for the project. So as we're kind of going through the project and we get to know the client and obviously the location of the space and the project, we start to think like, okay, well, would we go with like this kind of candle from the Lavo, or is it this scent that's more woody, or is it, what is it about them that we think would be a kind of perfect scent for them? And so on the morning of install or the last day of the install, we light candles throughout the house that are the same scent. So it kind of starts to permeate through. And then by the time the client gets there for the reveal, like it hits them along. So they have like this lovely scent to smell and this like feast, but also a feast for the eyes. So it kind of is a more immersive memory that we're trying to create there.
Yes, and how incredibly thoughtful, first of all, but then that you're building scent into that palimpsest of space that you've created, right? Because what does spark our memory more than a scent of a particular place often? On that note, one of the things I love so much about your practice is you have the most amazing blog called Project Candle to express your candle obsession,
Yes.
In which you curate and then rate candles according to everything from fragrance to packaging to burn time, everything from Fragonal to Heretic. So would you tell us how this started, this passion project? And
yeah, absolutely. So to be totally honest, we've always loved scented candles. And so I think starting the candle blog, in twofold, it kind of helped us to share what we were learning about different candles and to share our experience. But also it kind of helped to make our guilty pleasure a little bit less guilty. Like there was a purpose now.
Maybe it's acceptable, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I also definitely think it evokes a sense of memory and longing, and I guess come full circle, we want to create a home that feels like a Heimat, which clearly is more than just a place that feels like home, but something that is a feeling and something that you'll remember, once you leave the home, but also when you come home, you're like, oh, that's what home should smell and feel like.
So thank you so much for sharing all of this wonderful expertise around creating the brilliant children's rooms that you do. And in closing, I just wanted to circle back to obviously the rest of your practice. You create absolutely gorgeous private residences and commercial spaces, hospitality. What are you working on now that you're excited about?
The first thing that comes to mind is a winery tasting room that we're working on in the North Beach neighborhood. This winery is a biodynamic winery in Cloverdale, but they don't have a tasting room up there. So we are creating their space here, and they are doing a thing where they actually have, they're planting like an acre or two of vegetables. And so as a member of that winery, you also get like a produce box that you could pick up in their tasting room or at the tasting room.
It's going to be an exciting kind of new take on a winery, because you're used to having them more so in around where the vineyards are, but their approach is more so having it in the city. And we try to very much incorporate their holistic approach and like very natural approach of farming. So the sense that we're trying to evoke with the space is more so natural and like very soft, a soft palette, but very much so interesting, and like the kind of bringing the nature that they've created, obviously the farming style that they've created, back into the city, so that they can also kind of have a leg in a way of like educating people in the city about what they're doing. So
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And I would imagine we're all thinking the same thing at this moment. Like, we can't wait to see what candle that you put around that. It's gonna
Definitely in the back of our mind. What are we gonna do with that?
Amazing.
For sure.
Like rhubarb and grape, or no?
Like that. I don't
You'll
know.
figure it
I have
out.
no idea, but grape, it seems like an obvious scent we need to figure out for sure.
Awful and purple, yeah. Well, thank you so much again to both of you for taking the time to join us. And you can all read more about studioHEIMAT's work in the new issue of Henry, in a wonderful story by Robin Wise, which you can find at henrymag.com. And the next 2 weeks are Design San Francisco, which is going to be full of design virtual programming. So tune in for that. So we will see you 2 weeks after, at the end of the month. And thank you so much again, both of you guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Take care.